Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show, the Harmony, Your Path to Wholeness channel. And we help you on that path to wholeness by bringing you a series of interesting guests. Today will be no exception. It's a repeat guest, but I'm not going to give the game away. First, let's introduce co-host Kathleen Beauvais. Hi, Kathleen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Peter, and thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we have a repeat guest today. Her name is Nancy Becher. Hello, Nancy. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me back.
Now, Nancy is a chronic and autoimmune disease specialist, the #1 international best-selling author. She's the founder and president of Invisible Warriors, and their mission is to educate and inform the public, government, medical, travel industries about ongoing invisible illnesses and to improve the lives of all women affected by them. Today, she wants to yak with us about women's resiliency while dealing with health issues, often leading to feeling unworthy and alone. So, Nancy, what's the biggest problem facing women who feel that they're not getting good medical advice?
The biggest problem is that, in my opinion, is that the women feel like nobody's listening to them. They're not being heard. They're all alone, and they'll go in to see a doctor, and the doctor will say, lose a little weight, you'll feel better, or get out and do some exercise, and you'll be 100%. And they can't walk, they can't sleep, they have horrible migraines, and they go, but doctor, and the doctor doesn't listen because he's got 2 minutes to get onto his next appointment.
Right, right.
Yeah. And let me tell you, that happens not just with women, that happens with
Well,
men
that's
as well.
true. It happens, yes, and happens with everybody, I think it does not. Yeah.
And unfortunately, in my experience, it's getting worse. I'm only speaking with experience with the Canadian system, but wow. But we won't go into that. So, Nancy, tell our audience what you mean about invisible illnesses. There's a whole range, I know, but try and give us some specifics.
Sure. The ones that most people know something about are things like diabetes,
Hmm.
Crohn's, fibromyalgia, MS, lupus, cancer. They're what they generally mean is that anything that lasts from 6 months onward and doesn't go away.
Hmm.
Long COVID has now been put into the category. There are over 100 different what are called rare diseases that have been diagnosed. And a rare disease is when there are 275,000 or less people that have the disease.
Okay.
And in many cases, you may find 200 people that have been diagnosed with something. And the problem is that a lot of these diseases all have a lot of the same symptoms. And doctors haven't been trained to figure all the little things out. And I've just been reading some books on doctor misdiagnoses.
Hmm.
And it's like I had was supposed to have a doctor's appointment a few weeks ago, and the doctor called and said, I don't feel I'm capable of looking at you and telling you anything. You have over 800 pages of medical records.
Wow.
There's nothing that I can do to look at you and tell you what's really going on with your body. And oftentimes the doctors will rely on previous medical records. If
Mhm.
this doctor has seen you and said, you've got XYZ disease, the next doctor comes along and says, yep, that's probably exactly what you've got. You've got the
Right.
same symptoms, and I don't have the time. The insurance isn't going to cover all the tests, and we're just going to go with that. And guess what? That may not be what you have.
Sure. Sure.
And the other thing
Wow.
is, oftentimes, they'll send you for tests, and the tests, blood work, what have you, comes back normal. So they just, it's normal. So nothing more that they can do because they have no idea how else to proceed because the tests show everything's normal, but the person's
Right.
still suffering. And
The doctors need to be able to think outside the box.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the doctor that I finally saw after the other one turned me down walks in and he says, "So you've got 800 pages of medical records. We're going to start at the beginning. Tell me," and this is something that I recommend anyone going to the doctor does. He says, "Tell me from the beginning. Where do you hurt? How do you hurt? How long have you hurt? What does it feel like? What makes it worse? What makes it better?"
Mhm.
And that gives them an idea. If I go in and I say, "Oh, I have a stomach ache," that could be anything. But
Mm-hmm.
if I go in and I say, "I have a stomach ache in the lower right quadrant of my stomach," and it's a pinching and a sharp stabbing, he's going to know that it's probably not an appendicitis, because the appendicitis hurts on the left side. So if you go in with a very clear statement telling him or her what it is that's going on, they can better say, "Okay, well, let's not even look at um, this particular thing, because it doesn't sound like that's what you've got."
Mm-hmm.
And
Oftentimes,
that
right.
gives them an idea of where to go.
The other thing is with our medical system, I don't know about yours, but when you go see a doctor, oftentimes you're in there no more than 10 minutes. And if your medical records are, as you said, 8,000 pages long,
800, but
it,
that's enough.
you know, there's no way that they have the time to go through everything, and really dive into somebody's medical history. I mean, it's almost impossible with that little amount of time. And also here, when you go in to see the doctor, they want you to only talk about one issue at a time.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Well,
But what
and
I
go
was going
ahead,
to
Judy.
say, no, what you were just saying, Nancy, if I'm old enough to remember what doctors, family doctors, we used to call them general practitioners when I in the British environment. That's what they did before the days of computer, when they didn't have access to 800 or even 8 pages of medical records. They had your card in their filing cabinet, no computers, and they asked questions to find out what was wrong with you. And generally, they took 20 minutes to 30 minutes for each patient, right? And the strange thing was, those doctors still made a good living, and they were still a respected member of society, certainly earning above the average, but they gave good service to their patients, right? We've lost all that. So,
We have,
Absolutely.
and it's because in general, the insurance industry has come in. Large corporate medical facilities have
yeah.
come in. My endocrinologist for my diabetes has said, "I would love to sit here and talk to you for 45 minutes, but I am told by the head of my hospital that I can only spend 10 minutes with you.
Mm.
I'm not going to be able to bill for a longer period of time, and besides that, I'm dealing with 500 patients. I don't
Ah.
have the time to give every person the quality care that they need." And
Mm.
it's all
Mm.
because the large conglomerates have gotten greedy.
That's right. Turned it into an industry. Wow, Kathleen.
Yeah, I know. Is this why a lot of women often feel gaslit and stigmatized when dealing with an invisible illness?
Absolutely. Even family members and friends don't understand. If they're used to you uh, going out and partying on a Friday night, and having a good time and having everybody over for dinner on Sunday afternoon, and now you're saying, "I just don't feel like it. I'm just going to go to bed," then they wind up thinking, "She's making it up. She just doesn't really want to see us. What did we do? She's mad at us. There's something that we've done." And then, of course, the person who's sick feels like they need to do things that they don't really have the strength or the energy to do, because they don't want their families to be upset with them. They don't want their friends to be
Mm.
mad at them. So you wind up with this huge mess of feelings that are you're lost, you're alone, you're unworthy, you just 7 out of 10 women who have been diagnosed with a chronic or autoimmune illness actually attempt suicide at least once.
Oh, oh,
Oh,
wow, that's terrible,
well,
terrible,
those are
terrible.
high numbers.
And
Yeah,
and the presumably the other reason you call it invisible is that let's contrast it with someone who loses a leg and they're in a wheelchair, right? They would also feel exactly like the person you're describing. They don't want to have people around on a Sunday and go out partying on a Friday. But because they're in a wheelchair or are with an artificial leg and it's now visible and everyone will make allowances for them, right?
that's absolutely correct. But when you're walking, and I just read something this morning that was talking about, okay, well, yesterday you were walking with a cane. You don't have a cane today. Why are you making up the fact that you
Mm,
think you have an invisible illness? Well, I may not need the cane today. I may feel
correct.
fine, but an hour from now, I maybe not be able to stand up.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So the invisible illnesses are by the fact that we don't look sick. And
That's
when
right.
we are sick, we're in bed. So you
Yeah.
don't see us.
So what's the solution? What can you and everybody, how can we turn this around?
You have to get the education out here. What I'm doing today is helping with the situation. I'm
Hmm.
out there advocating. I'm talking to doctors. I'm talking to in the United States. I'm talking to the Congress and the legislators. I had a sit down and come to Jesus meeting with a hotel I was at this weekend because we had our service dog. And by law, the service dog can go with us to the hotel. And they wouldn't let us in the hotel because we had a dog. So I spent a good amount of time teaching and training that hotel that you can't have service dogs. And it's getting the word out there so that more and more people begin to understand what we're talking about, begin to understand that it's real, that it may not be life ending, it is definitely life altering.
Altering, right.
And once people start to understand that this is real, then they're going to be able to start slowly making changes. If we can get the government to realize, even in the state of Alabama, which is where I'm from, if we can get the government here to realize that this is serious, they may be able to put laws in place that don't allow the insurance companies to charge the humongous amounts of money that they do and say you can see a patient for a half an hour. But it's
Yeah.
very, very slow. And it takes more than my one little voice to do.
Sure,
Right.
sure, sure. Wow.
So you've just described to us some of the things that you think would be solutions for these women, but tell us more about your Invisible Warriors organization and what it
Sure.
provides.
Sure. We are a nonprofit and we are both in person and virtual. We have a virtual space that has communities. So, for instance, I have fibromyalgia. There's a fibro community where people can come in and they can share and they can talk. And you can say, well, Facebook has that. But Facebook, you don't own your own words on
Hmm.
Facebook. Facebook can take things down, they can change
Mhm.
them, you can do all kinds of things. Our communities all are private. They are only going to allow people that we let in that we know, are right for the organization. We also have training programs. We have once a month live sessions where we have specialists come in and talk about different issues. We have a weekly newsletter that is filled with all kinds of tips and strategies. And how do you not only live your life, but live your life thriving? There are just all kinds of things that we're doing. We just had the concert, which was a way to let women know that they could still have fun. If they couldn't come out to the concert, they could watch it on the live stream from bed if they needed to. But we were advocating at the concert. We were telling people all of these stories. We were showing the resiliency. We were generating income so that we can actually pay for medical care for some people. We have a coder that if you ever gotten a bill from a doctor for something and you're going, what the heck is that for? Um, this coder can look at it and figure out for you whether they were actually billing you correctly or not. And
Oh,
if not,
okay.
get that bill taken away. We had an 89-year-old gentleman billed for a hysterectomy.
What?
Yeah, and we had to get in there and help him, and we went, hello, fix this, and it finally got fixed. But this poor guy was going out of his mind because first of all, he couldn't figure out why he was being billed this huge amount of money, and
Yeah,
secondly, when finally found out what it was for, he's going, I don't think so.
I don't think so. No. Wow. Oh, that is terrible.
So we're trying to do all of these kinds of things, both for the women themselves and also just really getting out there, speaking, sharing, letting the world know the stories.
And as you
Good.
said, you're letting the
Quick one
world
before.
know. So this isn't just, although you are from Alabama, this really is a global venture.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay.
it is. We actually have a couple board members that are in Canada.
Hey,
So yeah. So,
fantastic.
I mean, we really are. We're focused right now on Alabama because it's where I am and because I'm the spokesperson and the president and the one who's really the most gung ho. But we do things all over the country. I've actually been to Washington, D.C. in front of Congress. I've talked to a couple of representatives here from the state of Alabama. I'm trying to reach out to the governor here in Alabama. It's a daily mission because
Wow.
I want other women to live the I have seen over 3,000 medical professionals since my car accident 10 years ago. I don't want other people to have to live like that.
Wow.
3,000. Wow.
Oh.
And of course, you have a member who does a lot of work as well, who's been on our show before, Sandy Rodriguez. She's in New Jersey, I think, is she not?
Yes, she's in New Jersey and she's the vice president of my board, and she's right in there working just as hard as I am because she herself has some
Good.
issues and she knows what it's all about.
That's right. Here's one for you. Would you say the majority of your members are boomers, older, or not
No,
necessarily?
the
No.
largest
Okay.
percentage, the largest percentage of women with chronic and autoimmune injuries are in their 30s.
In their 30s, really, eh?
Nice. Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. Well, it's still relevant for your older members. We've come across a site called boomer.org, and they republish some of our content and our videos. I don't know if you're aware of them, but I'm sure that they would pick up your crusade, for want of a better term. I think is a very apt term, and publish some of your stuff on there. And they have a
Mhm.
huge following. So boomer.org, if you want to look them up, and you can
I certainly
you
will.
can become a member and provide content. It could be a good way to get the word out. Um, for people who are your members and perhaps their parents even who might be in that category. So where are we going? Kathleen, I think I need
Yeah.
to go back to you and stop talking for a moment.
No, you go ahead, Peter. Number six.
Okay, so before I lost my train of thought, this happens when you get old, Uh,
That's not a chronic illness. However,
so I think Kathleen and I both think, and one of the reasons we switched from business to health and fitness is we believe and we know from ourselves that there's become a much greater awareness of alternate health and taking responsibility for one's own health since the COVID lockdowns, when people started questioning what's going on and not believing a lot of the stuff that was going on. Are you seeing that people are taking more responsibility for their own health?
oh, absolutely. But it's because a lot of times, excuse me, a lot of times they can't get in to see the doctors. There's a 6-month waiting list to see doctors. When they do get in to see them, they're told there's nothing wrong, and people are getting tired
Mhm.
of not having any idea what's really going on with them. I'm seeing a lot of people going back to the old ways of medication and things that they did 100 years ago. I'm also seeing a lot of alternative medications coming
Hmm.
into play and the alternative doctors. Problem with that, and that's a whole nother arena that we have to deal with, insurance companies will not work with, and the doctors will not work with the insurance companies. It's a
Hmm.
two-way street because most alternative doctors can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour per patient. And they will also ask for many different tests on different
Hmm.
things.
Mhm.
And the insurance companies don't want to pay for that. And it gets to be very, very expensive, thousands of dollars,
Hmm.
to go see an alternative doctor because it's not insurance covered. It's out of your own pocket. And a lot of times people can't afford that, or
Sure.
they do they have to figure out, I got to take out a loan on my house to go see this
Go and see the
doctor.
doctor. Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, we also see, and I'm a case in point that because I had a heart attack 14 years ago, I was on statins for a long time. And then I started doing research and I thought, why am I still on this drug? And then I looked at all the side effects and I looked at it. It's the most prescribed drug in North America. And I thought, don't think I need it. And I stopped it. And the same with blood pressure pills. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not advising anyone else to stop taking prescribed medicines. But I've spoken to a number of other people who've done their own research, said, I don't think I should be on a drug for 12 years. Sometimes that you have to be if it's diabetes. And my blood pressure is just like it was before when I was taking the drugs. In fact, better some days, right? So we see quite a few people waking up to this now and saying, do we need all this stuff? I do take some supplements and natural medicines, but case in point. Good. No, thank you for that. And see,
Absolutely.
Kathleen.
So Nancy, do you believe that women face greater problems than men when dealing with health issues?
Three-quarters of the population of individuals who have been diagnosed with these diseases are women.
Hmm.
And that's why my organization focuses on women, is because, more than half actually are women that have these, like the Lyme and the fibro and the lupus and all of those are more generally a woman, you know, gotten disease, and it's because of our genetics.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there's a lot of different things going on in our bodies that make it more easily attainable for us to get these diseases than for men.
Right,
Sure.
right.
So, but I think it goes further than that, and maybe this is getting controversial, but it needs saying that I'm an older male myself, and I still notice that a lot of men still treat women differently to men, and a lot of women, unfortunately, feel they have to accept being treated differently to men. It's a cultural thing which is changing a lot, and it probably doesn't apply to the 20-year-olds and the millennials and the Gen Zers. But I've noticed amongst 30 and 40-year-old women that they will defer to a male doctor in a white coat in instances when a man wouldn't, right? So am I on the right track there? Are you seeing that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, that goes back to the stigma and the stereotyping and the gaslighting.
Yeah.
Again, oftentimes if a guy walks into a doctor's office and says, "Doctor, my knee hurts," the doctor will look at it. If
Hmm.
a woman goes in and says, "Doctor, my knee hurts," they'll say, "Well, you're probably sitting too much. You need to get up and exercise some more." And
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, that's
Oh, cool. I know.
not
I know.
every doctor. That's not every doctor, but it's many doctors, and it's also husbands and
Yeah.
sons, and all of the different men. They, they are, and women, of course, are also raised, at least in my area, in my age range, we were raised to take care of the house, to get a job,
Hmm.
to have the family, to do all of the things. And we feel guilty if we can't do it any longer. And then when the husband comes home and says, "Well, where's my dinner?" You feel horrible because I had a nap this afternoon because I just wasn't feeling good, and I'm sorry, but we're going to have taken,
Mhm.
Yep. No, it's unfortunately that's still around. That's still with us.
Mhm.
So many people. whether they've got let's focus on people that are not feeling well. The doctors can't help them. They've been told to get more exercise or whatever. Plus, there's a lot of depression and negativity in the world. Not me, not Kathleen. We see opportunities, but
Absolutely.
there's a reason for a lot of people to be worried about the future. So add that onto someone who's not feeling well, can't put their finger on it, not getting help from the doctor. What was one thing you would advise them to do tomorrow to try and get on the right track of sorting themselves out?
One of the things that I'm always saying to people, and I truly believe this, and it can be bigger, it can be little, and it's not everything, but it's mindset. And if you can think of, instead of looking at this is horrible, I can't deal with this, I'm just miserable, think, hey, I got out of bed this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this podcast. I was at a 2-day conference last week. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, and I did it, and I was able to succeed at it. But boy, do I hurt. So, it's okay to be down. I don't think there's a day goes by that I don't cry and feel bad for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I go, okay, that's done with. I'm going to now start counting my blessings and look at the positive. What can I still do? What am I doing? What am I doing well? What do I want to do? How am I going to do it? And I always try to look at the positive. And it makes you
Very
feel
good.
better.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
Great advice. Great advice.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you, Nancy. Back to Kathleen.
Nancy, how do people contact you?
My website is the number one best way to go, and that is invisiblewarriors.org. And that's warrior, not lawyer. Everybody thinks with my accent I'm a lawyer, and they probably want them to be invisible. But it is warrior,
Okay.
WARRIORS.org. And that will take you to our platform for the virtual group. It gives you links to our newsletter, to our blogs. It takes you to all the important places.
Fantastic.
Excellent. And I've been on that website several times, and it's easy to navigate, and there's lots of good resources on there. So thank you for that, Nancy.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Nancy. We so appreciated having you back on the show. And once again, thank you also very much for tuning in. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, we invite you to visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.